And that was probably I think that December was probably my first 5-figure month, both pre-tax and after tax. And I was like, okay, this is nice. Well, interesting enough, at the time, again, closed mouths don't get fed. I went to my manager and I said, I want to do this course. Can the company pay for it? It's kind of nice coming full circle and seeing that, okay, what I was working on back then is now just so commonplace now. That's pretty cool.
Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. In this interview, I have Chima, the wonderful full stack developer who I actually met online via a tweet. Someone tweeted, what's one of the best things you've done in the past 3 years? And I saw his tweet about working in Barbados. And of course, I had to bring you on my channel. So Chima, please could you introduce who you are and what you do?
Hey guys, I'm Chima. I'm a full stack developer. Currently working as a contractor. As Stembave mentioned, I was out working in Barbados for about 6 months, and then I came back, quit my job as a permanent employee, and I went contracting.
Okay, Chima, thank you so much. So I want you to talk about your journey into getting into tech, especially what made you choose to do a degree in technology, and then what led you to pursue your first role within technology.
So I first got into tech in college, and I was on the Barclays website, funnily enough. And I wanted to know how they built it. It was one of the websites that I saw I was really interested in. I just liked the way it worked at the time. And I was a designer before I was ever writing code. So way back in the day, I used to make MSN display pictures, little tiny animations and things like that. So I was always on the design side. But the Barclays website is what got me thinking, okay, how do I do that? And then it led me to coding.
Awesome. I see that you did a degree within graphics design. Is that sort of what inspired you to pursue that particular degree program and not anything else? Were you conflicted in choosing another degree program, or were you set on graphic design?
I actually wanted to do computer science, which is obviously the typical route into tech, but the university I went to, which was De Montfort in Leicester, they didn't have it. They had it as an option, but it didn't. This might sound bad, but it didn't stand for much at DMU instead of another university. So I thought, okay, let's pick something else. And I did get a scholarship to go to uni as well. So I thought, okay, let's go to DMU, but let's do something different that's kind of adjacent. So I did graphic design for interactive media, and that was pretty much 2D design, 3D design, sound engineering, sound recording, video editing, video recording, photography editing, web design, web coding, live drawing. It was everything. I basically walked out of my degree being able to do anything within media. And if it was really difficult to do, I had like a basic foundational understanding that I could build on. So that's kind of what got me into it.
Yeah, I really like that because I guess you were very targeted in your approach to like studying a degree, because obviously with computer science or software engineering, they're quite generic. But what it seems to me is that they were teaching you the technical skills needed to be successful within the creative and media industry. So I think for my viewers, I think it's really important to maybe be specific in the course that you do, because you can get sort of confused or swayed by the range of options that are there, especially within software engineering. You can cover so many modules. It's really nice to see that you were able to specify in that one particular area. So what did you do? Did you do A-levels before you went to university, or did you go to college?
Yeah, so I went to sixth form college, and I did, oh man, it was so long ago, philosophy, economics, media, and sociology for AS level. And then for A level, I just dropped philosophy and stuck with the other three, sorry.
What made you want to drop philosophy?
You know what it is? It was the process of deduction. So I really liked economics. Media was a very easy course for me, both at GCSE and A level, to be honest with you. And between philosophy and sociology, I just kind of found sociology a bit more interesting. I kind of thought philosophy gave me what I needed or what I wanted, but sociology was the thing that was like, okay, this feels more comfortable.
Interesting. So yeah, now you've graduated university. What like roles were you looking for after you'd graduated, and why those in particular?
Well, funnily enough, I didn't actually go directly into employment. So me and my partner at the time, we started our own magazine business in second year uni, and it was focused on natural hair and holistic health. So she wrote the content, I designed the magazine and designed the website. So as soon as I came out of uni, I walked straight into my first business with my partner at the time. We parted ways in 2013, and that's when I started looking for work, basically. Um, and my first job was a web designer at a e-commerce company called buygift.com. Um, and that was pretty much what I did in uni, in terms of it was 50% design, 50% code, and that kind of helped me hone my skills in both arenas, which was pretty cool. And then it was quite fun. So web design and software engineering are kind of different in terms of web design is pretty much, it's, for me, it's just focused on websites. It's changed quite a bit because I guess some web designers would work across single page applications these days, but for back then it was pretty much just web design. You used subsets of JavaScript called jQuery and things like that. So when I wanted to move more into the engineering side, I did like a 10-week course in JavaScript at General Assembly. But when I came back to the company, there wasn't anyone to use it. So I quickly quit and went freelancing. And that was where I was thrown into building websites with WordPress. I touched on Node.js. I kind of honed all my skills that I needed for JavaScript at that point in that freelance. It took me about, I was freelancing for about 3, maybe 4 years. And then after that, I got a job at a augmented reality and virtual reality company called Hellition, and they do some smashing work. I mean, the stuff I did there was just fascinating. Like they had what's called a magic mirror.
Okay.
It's actually in Charlotte Tilbury in Covent Garden, actually.
Okay.
And they would allow you to map lipstick to your face and take a selfie and email it to yourself. But you'd pick like a lipstick off the tray and it would map the same shade to your lips and it would be moving with you at the same time. So that was really, really exciting for me. And I spent 2 years there. And then I went to, I think I went to a company called Intelligent Reach. And that was a marketing platform. They had like a SaaS business and we were basically adding and scaling that pretty much. Which was probably the best full-time job I've ever had. And I say that because that's where I feel like I actually became a developer. Because I guess before then I was I never really felt like I was a good developer until I after a year there, I felt like, okay, there's something happening here. Like you're starting to get more confident. You're not copying code anymore. You're piecing things together. You're working things out logically. And I think that's where coding starts to stick.
Yeah.
So I spent a year and 8 months there, but during that time, lockdown hit. So I guess this leads into the Barbados story, actually. Lockdown hit, and I thought it's always been my dream to work 6 months abroad and 6 months in the UK ever since I became a software engineer. So we were at home, and Barbados came out of these remote work visas, and I thought these are amazing. This makes so much sense. I feel like this is the right time. So, and I guess this lends to a point of closed mouths don't get fed, because they didn't actually send me there. I just asked them to go. And initially it was, the case I made was basically like, we're at home. I can do my work from any location. We can do it on a month-to-month basis. If my productivity falls or my performance falls, I'm happy to just come back. It's not a problem. And they said, okay, cool, no problem. So they were like, we'll run it month by month, as you said. So after the first month, it was fine. Second month, it was fine. They were like, you know what, third month, you might as well stay there till lockdown ends. And I found myself staying there from October all the way up to April.
Oh yeah, so thank you for that insightful discussion. I'm going to break it down and dissect a little bit. So it seemed as though you started off your career journey in line with basically what you did in your degree as a web designer, and you were able to implement that. But what I liked is that you continued to grow your knowledge piece and develop some of your technical skills that you may not have necessarily been strong. So you decided to invest in your education, should I say, through General Assembly and the JavaScript course. What was it that led you to think, I need to invest in this? Because it's not cheap, it's quite expensive, you know?
Well, interesting enough, at the time, again, closed mouths don't get fed. I went to my manager and I said, I want to do this course. Can the company pay for it? And they said, we can, but you're not allowed to leave for a year after you finish the course, or you have to pay us back half the money. I was like, okay, that's a fair point. So it was the need to further my development that had me learning JavaScript. So yeah.
It's good that I love how the phrase is closed mouths don't get fed. You basically explored the opportunities that your work could have given you, because you could have easily been like, you know what, I'll save 10 grand, especially because you got the scholarship at uni as well. Easily been an investment piece, but you thought, you know what, they probably have a training budget. A lot of these companies usually will have a training budget, and if you don't ask, you don't get. Yeah, so I also liked your conversation so then you sort of took the leap of faith and decided to join an AR VR company where you were able to sort of implement your software engineering skills. And you talked about your experience of sort of the future, should I say, metaverse that is now growing and developing. And you were able to explore that, like, 4 or 5 years ago, which is quite exciting. Is there any sort of technologies that you were working on then, which was like 5 years ago, I believe, that is now becoming more like you're seeing more of? You're like, oh wow, I used to work on this sort of stuff, and now it's like starting to become a little bit more mainstream.
Yeah, well, the technology I was working with those companies is literally what gave birth to the face filters that we use on our apps every single day now, because technology back then didn't exist in our phones in that way to map things to your face, but now it's close to perfect, if not seamless. And that's what we were trying to perfect all those years ago. And this was like 2016, 2017. So it's kind of nice coming full circle and seeing that, okay, what I was working on back then is now just so commonplace now that's pretty cool.
Where do you see that space growing? Because it's still a bit of a concept, an idea. No one really knows what the end product is going to be like. How do you see it advancing or really changing the world? A bit of an exaggeration, but
I think, and I've seen it in some places now, but I see the gap between reality and the virtual world is just becoming very, very thin, very thin. So I know there's particular products currently that you can take a picture of a sofa and you can map it to your room to see how it looks when it's in there. Things like that I think are going to become much, much more commonplace. But I do think there is this danger of us relying too much on this virtual world and completely being so tied up in it that we're forgetting about this real life and there's actually people outside.
So you think we're just widening the loneliness gap or lack of social connection gap potentially through the VR or AR space? But could you say that, I think when we think the metaverse, we think like Facebook online with the headset, but you gave a really good use case with regards to the things like trying on virtually lipsticks and stuff like that. So if we're outside of this supposed metaverse social media world, do you think it could be used in day-to-day life?
Yeah, definitely. I don't think it's a bad thing, but I think, as with most things with tech, if we go too far, I think we're going to face some really interesting problems.
Interesting. So you said that, okay, so you'd been doing your work in the VR, AR space, and you got to jump right in being a software engineer, having done web development. How was that transition from being, front-facing web development to now being introduced to the back-end systems?
Painful. It was very, very painful. Just because front-end developers and back-end developers, they think very differently. And Because on back-end development, you're thinking about data structures, you're thinking about storing the data, you're thinking about how you can process the data and how quickly you can give it back to the front end. Whereas as a front end developer, you're thinking about styling, you're thinking about UX, you're thinking about animations, it's performance, and it's a different way of thinking. But learning back end development made me a better front end developer, because I guess working on the front end for so long, I would send the data to the back end and I'd forget about it, because obviously it's not my job to know where it goes. But now that I understand what happens to it there, it means I can send the data in a better way towards the back end to make it easier for those guys to do the job. So it was painful, but it was learning JavaScript, because you don't have to learn a completely new language to look across backend because of Node.js. It was painful to make the shift in mindset, but it was seamless in terms of the actual day-to-day writing of code.
Yeah, that's really interesting in terms of with technology. You kind of have to know a bit about everything, even if you're a subject matter expert in one particular area, in order to
100%.
really grow and provide the best value. It seems like, yes, you were focusing on web development, but you kind of had to, put in a bit more hard work or struggle a little bit trying to understand the back end and invest in that area, even though your speciality was front end. So I think it just goes to show that, technology is like continuously learning, a continual journey. So I see that you made a journey from being a permanent staff member to a contract staff member in the same team. If I'm right, what made you switch from permanent to contract?
So I was in Barbados, right? And I was like, I don't really want to come back. So I actually quit my full-time job before I touched UK. But the thing is, and here's another there's a message here about bringing your entire skill set to your job, even if they don't really require it. So I was employed at Intelligent Reach as a front-end developer, and it was 30% back-end with C#. And what I'd started realizing is that because I've got a back-end in UX and UI, they didn't have a design team. But what I started noticing is that because we're all developers, we'd build things and they'd work, but the UX would be really crappy. So I started bringing my laptop, and whenever I'd get a user story, I'd design it first, send it to the stakeholders and the product owner. We'd get feedback and I'd iterate in the design before we got to code. And what started happening is that we'd have less bugs in production because we'd now thought about the user journey. So when I quit as a front-end developer, they were like, well, we've got no one to head up the design team now. So do you want to have a contract for 2 days a week? And that first contract had me making the exact same money I was making as a full-time employee for 2 days a week. And that's when I thought, okay, this feels good.
Do you know what? I absolutely love that, because you went with the intention of like dropping out, and then because you were so valuable, they were like, no. And it's amazing to see how much you can get paid, in the same company. You're working for the same company, doing less work, and they're paying you more. And it just goes to show, like, when you're good at what you do, people will pay you. And was it a surprise to you when they offered you that 2-day contract?
I felt like I was stealing from them, because obviously I'd been working a year and 8 months for them, making the same money, and I was getting paid the exact same money for doing less. And I was like, okay, well, it was a nod to my skill set, and a nod to, because one of the criticisms I had at one of my previous roles actually is that I don't speak up enough. So the fact that I put my foot so far forward that my skills were in such high desire for them, even when I was trying to leave, and they thought, no, we could keep him and give him more money for less work. That was nice. I felt like I'd made a really big leap in my career, but also as an individual, because speaking up is something we all find difficult on some level. So yeah, I was happy. I was quite proud of myself.
I love that for you, especially as you're not the one who actually asked for it.
Yeah.
Imagine that if you asked. Well, I don't know. I guess in terms of negotiations now, you're at a better. You're basically in front, because you can be like, well, you are approaching me to come back, so therefore you're offering me this. How about this? So that's really exciting. And so then this is when you said earlier you're doing 3 contract jobs. And so is it 2 days doing that company and then 2 days another one and then one day another one? How does that work?
So it was 2 days a week there. It was like Wednesday or Thursday. And then the company that I worked for, Halicion, did the AR and VR work. They also got back in contact with me. I was like, listen, we've got a project. Are you available for 8 weeks? I was like, well, yeah, of course I am. Give me more money, for sure. So that was my second contract. And they were running in tandem. And then I later picked up a day and a half, a month one for a charity. A friend recommended me. And I was like, okay, this is a lot of work, but it's still manageable. But obviously, when you saw the money at the end of the month, I was like, okay, we can sleep earlier and wake up earlier to do this. That's no problem.
Love that.
And obviously, the 8 week projects that stopped, and then but because I'd had experience of doubling up contracts, I thought, well, how far can I push this? So that 2 day a week contract lasted a good 8 months, led me all into the next year. But within that time, I picked up another contract. So the 8 week contract finished. Then I picked up a full-time contract now. Still had a day and a half a week, a month one for the charity because they just needed website management. So now I was still doing free contracts. But obviously, because it's full-time, the money's different now. It's more than I was making before. And I thought, I sort of sat there and thought, this feels like things are moving in a particular direction that I didn't predict before. And that was probably I think that December was probably my first 5-figure month, both pre-tax and after tax. And I was like, okay, this is nice. This is really cool.
Oh, so what advice would you give for people who are looking to get into the contracting space to make lucrative amounts like you did? I guess for you, you weren't necessarily looking for that. It came to you. And then obviously once you're exposed to that, you leveraged it and were like, oh, okay, cool. Oh, now I can do X, Y, Z. So for those who are actively and intentionally seeking contract roles, what would you advise and where's the best place to look or how to get noticed and reached out for such offers?
Well, it's an interesting one because speaking about the market now, it's very, very different. Like I've been speaking to a lot of my contractor mates, specifically the developers, and it's been really quiet. It's been really, really quiet for work to the point where I've had friends who haven't had a full-time contract since last year, August. So if you're going into it, I'd say have an emergency fund, like a good 4 months if you can. And also, I would reorganize your CV to make it look like projects as opposed to full-time employment. That's what I did to first get in. And where I find my jobs range from efinancialcareers.co.uk, LinkedIn, Indeed is one of my favorites, Glassdoor, Otta, OTTA, and there's this website that's really underrated. It's called Key Values, and they will offer remote work, both for contractors and full-time employees. So yeah, those are my main places.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. How do you manage doing 3 contracts? Do you not find it difficult context switching? How do you manage that and the workload and the demands?
So with the workload, I'm very familiar with working 7 days a week because I did that throughout my 20s. So it's my norm, unfortunately. And it's my norm because I'd work 9 to 5 and then in the evenings and weekends, I'd be tinkering with something that I found online, or I'd be working for a friend's startup, or I'd be coding. I'd be doing something, but it was work related. So I'm used to working 7 days a week. So I guess now what I do is that I would wake up maybe an hour earlier. I'd complete some jobs, some tasks, because there's like maybe 2 hours or 3 hours work for some of them. And then the rest is just being available. Oh, we need you to do this, and it's just a quick, maybe an hour, 2 hour there. So I wake up early, sleep early for one, and two, you may have to work a weekend. You might have to. It just depends where you are and what you want to do. So I know for me, when I was doing the free contracts, that was full time, and at the time I was saving for my mortgage. So contracting knocked off 2 years on saving for my mortgage. So it's a lot of work. I'm not gonna lie, and sometimes you will go to sleep tired. I know one of my other friends. She's currently working 2 full-time contracts, which I don't know how she's doing, and she's not sleeping, but she's also clearing 5 figures at the end of the month as well. So it really does depend what you want to do for it. I don't think it's sustainable long term, I'll be honest, but it's really good if you've got like a really acute objective and you want to get there quickly.
You know what? I really like that in terms of, I guess, before you were doing the contracting roles anyway, you're already a bit of a workaholic.
Yes.
Should I say? But you weren't a workaholic in terms of like making money per se. It was more like you were experimenting with things that you were interested in. And fortunately, that helped to increase your knowledge, your skill set, and help you more marketable in the market, based in the tech market. And I really like that transparency, because I feel like, obviously, if I was to put like 5 figures in tech a month, people are going to think, oh, I'm going to do a 6-week course and then come out with a 6-figure salary. And it's like, no, from what you've described and the journey you've talked about, you did your degree, then you did entrepreneurship, then you did web development, and then you went into AR and VR. And then it's only until you moved to Barbados and you were offered the role that you were like, oh, actually, I can leverage off this. And it's because people saw your skill set, and from that you were able to be like, actually, hold on, I've been underplaying myself, let me see how far I can stretch myself. So I like how you said it's not necessarily sustainable, but if you're hardworking and can sustain those long hours of work, and you have a short-term goal, then you've got to work. Nothing in life's easy. 5 figures a month doesn't come, like easy like that. And I think what's important to note is time management clearly for you, because obviously you could work within the work hours, but it seems as though what you do is before the work hours, do the actual work that you need to do, and then be online for meetings, which, when you're like working normally, sometimes your day's filled up with meetings and you can't actually do work. So I think sorry about that.
I think sometimes not every day is the same as well. Like sometimes you'll have like 4 hours of work for one contract and you'll have 2 for the other, but you've got 2 day rates coming in at the end of the week. So it's no 2 days are the same. And I would say, of all the times I've been working multiple contracts, even now, I've only ever had 2 full-on days. And that's 2 full-on days where everything's breaking on every contract. That's really about it. Aside from that, it's been quite relaxing.
Yeah, I guess because you're a subject matter expert, and the years of grafting you got to this stage means that for you just work and flow, right? And I think people need to understand that you didn't just get out of uni and do 3 contracts. It's just through work experience, trial and error, all of your previous experiences, where you're now able to be like, yeah, give me a contract, work, done this, bish bash bosh, I can go. And I guess, like you said, when things go wrong, it's not necessarily doing the work, it's when things go wrong and you're the subject matter expert that's needed to debug it, where it can occupy your time.
Yeah, exactly that.
Oh, and there's another thing I really like that you mentioned in terms of arranging your CV to be project-based. I really liked that piece of advice. So in terms of your CV, you would put where you worked, and then you say project worked on, and then what that project entailed. Because even for me, this is news to me, to be fair. To write it, I usually just write skill sets. I use this, I use that, I do this. But I guess if project-based, and that's how contracts work, based on projects, that's really good advice.
Yeah, that's probably been a game changer for me as well, to be honest with you. And I got that from a recruiter. And there's actually another gem here as well that I should mention when it comes to looking for contracts. Make recruiters your friend. Like actually talk to them about their weekend. Like build that rapport, because there's certain cool recruiters who they've had a job come in and they've rang me straight away just because I asked them about their day. We had like a good chat. They've just rang me straight away. Some of them, they've sent me texts at inappropriate times of the day. They're like, I've got this job that I'm currently discussing, want to get you in there. Actually build that relationship. Recruiters become your best friend, because before it goes online, they'll probably be in your inbox if you're good to them.
Yeah, that's really interesting as well. And obviously, if you build that relationship, you can sort of discuss your salary expectations, and they can negotiate on your behalf, and they 100%. Kind of know you and what to expect for you and what to give you and stuff like that. So that's really interesting, actually. Recruiters can be the bane of your life when you just update your LinkedIn profile and they're like, hey, we think you'd be interested. And you're like, I've only been here for a month. But I guess if you have that long-term established relationship with them, you know that if you're looking for a new opportunity or whatever, then somehow, some way, they'll find something for you.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
Interesting. Okay, so how has it been working remotely in Barbados? What are the pros, what are the cons, and what's the cost of living like compared to the UK, especially London?
Okay, cool. So, sorry, I'm smiling a lot because it was the best time of my life. Easy, 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 easy. So I started Barbados 4 hours behind. So I started my days at 4 a.m., 4:45 Beijing time, and I'd finish at 12:30 UK time, which meant that I was already finished work before people in Barbados was taking lunch. So that meant I would take a nap as soon as I'm done, because obviously 4:45 a.m. in the morning, it's not a joke. But then I'd be by the beach at 3 p.m. just relaxing, and then I'd be back in, obviously, because I was working with a friend on a startup at that point, so I'd be working still. It was a really lovely place. I really wanted to go back. I honestly didn't want to come back, but I was paying rent I was still paying rent in London whilst I was out there, so it was expensive, and I guess it was the cost of living out there. It is expensive because they import a lot of things, so you will find that you are paying maybe London prices, if not London prices, if not a bit more than London prices. Sorry.
Wow. Okay.
But you don't really feel it because the sun's out 24/7 and the beach is 5 minutes from you. Honestly, it just offsets a lot of things. What was the other question you asked me?
Yeah, what are the cons?
Probably the working hours. I know a lot of people, that 4 hour gap is breaking many people. I know a lot of people aren't morning people, but I am a morning person. Like I wake up at 6:30 every day in general, just because I like to be up. Even if I'm not doing anything, I'm up at like 6:30, maybe 7 on weekends as well.
So where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Do you see yourself working remotely again, having your own company, because you were an entrepreneur when you left university? Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Well, if we go all the way back, so I'm very objective driven, and for every job I've had a particular objective, right? So first one was to get my feet wet into development. Second one, because I was freelancing a lot in my 20s, was to figure out how to balance many different projects, which is why I went to an agency, stayed there for 2 years, quit after 2 years. The marketing company called Intelligent Reach, I wanted to figure out how to scale and manage a single page application. And then I quit after 2 years. Contracting was because it was a tick box, but I also wanted to save a lot of money. So all of those, I've got one more objective left career-wise, and that is to run my own business. Probably going to be an online business, maybe a software as a service. I did start one last year, August, but a big part of it is marketing, and I'm not fantastic at that, so I'm still getting my feet wet with that. But in 5 years, I want to have started 2, maybe 3 businesses and sold 2 or 3 businesses as well. I want to be someone I want to have a lifestyle business. And with lifestyle businesses, you're not trying to make millions and trillions. You're making maybe 30, 40K a month, but it's around your lifestyle. You're not killing yourself to make it, and you can easily sell it for 10x. There's a common phrase running around social media. Well, the people that I follow on social media are called indie hackers, and they're basically independent developers who have gone on to run their own businesses, and they're making anywhere from some 5K a month, 10K a month, 15K a month, 20K a month. So that's my objective moving forward.
Wow, I feel like I've learned a lot from this conversation, in terms of you've highlighted the importance of exploring and, spending time in the career that you're, planning to pursue. But it seems like it was something that you were interested in as it didn't seem like you were driven by the money initially. It seems that you were just interested in, and it happened to be that the money followed afterwards, having explored, done projects and worked hard, in your case, working 7 days a week, and the money followed. I really like your, discussion around the importance of time management. You know how you had to sort of like really take the L, should I say, with the timings, in terms of you knew you had to start at like 4 a.m, finish at 12, but you still leveraged that opportunity to go to bed earlier and wake up in time the next day. And also, you know, that entrepreneurial mindset, you know, went from being a full-time employee and exploring your entrepreneurship skills that you developed after you'd finished university. Now you want to apply on a big scale and have this sort of lifestyle living through having a business that you run and manage, and, you know, being tactical in terms of your next job and being very intentional is what I'm getting from you. And, you know, being intentional in terms of the jobs you choose because of the experience you get out of it, but also intentional in terms of, you knew the 3 contracts, 6 months, it may not be sustainable, but I know that I've got my house, I'm sorted. In the UK, you might have, or if you had your full-time job, it would have probably taken you like 5-6 years, but you're able to shorten that in a much shorter time, but that at the compensation of you having to, you know, really work hard to get there. So I really enjoyed this conversation. So that brings us to the end of this conversation of Chima talking about his experience working in Barbados and becoming a full stack web developer. He also has a YouTube channel where he teaches people about UI and UX design. If you'd like to know more information or, you know, get caught up to date with the different journeys of people getting into technology and their experiences, then make sure you like, subscribe, share and comment, and I'll be back with another video.